Hi everyone, happy midsummer. I am bringing you a reading life check-in as I never filmed my quarter 1 and 2 reading wrap-ups. Apologies for that, but I figured now is the perfect time to answer the mid-year freakout tag. There's so many alternate versions of this out there, but I'm just sticking with the original one that was created by Is That Chammy and Earl Grey Books. So their first question is, what's the best book you've read in 2026 so far? I am going to come back to this and share my answer to it at the very end of the video. So if you want to go ahead and take some guesses. So let's skip to the next question, which is, what's the best sequel you've read so far in 2026? I haven't had the chance to read any sequels as of yet, so I'm going to reword this question as the best reimagining of an original work. And that would be The Other Bennett Sister by Janice Hadlow. This book kicked off Big Book Summer for me, and I enjoyed this reimagining of Pride and Prejudice, all told through the lens of Mary Bennett. And yeah, I just loved I loved this, and seeing or reading about Mary's whole self-discovery journey from her, tribe of supportive friends and family, and just attaining self-fulfillment from her work and her passionate interests. And I just loved every moment of this. The next question is your favorite new release of 2026 so far. I don't typically read brand new releases, but I have started listening to Ruth Ozecki's newest book, which is a short story collection called The Typing Lady, and I'm still on the first story, but it's quite funny and I'm enjoying it so far. The next question is a new release you haven't read yet but want to. I have a little list here. So the first one is The Second Life of Snap by Erin Entrada Kelly. I've adored every single one of her books and am excited to read about this one that's set in our not so distant future, where everyone and everything is run by AI. So that should be interesting. And I have Tessa Woodward's newest one, Small Crimes. I really enjoyed her novel In the Middle of Somewhere. And this is a short story collection, and this sounds really fun in that she writes, you will meet liars, schemers, eavesdroppers, trespassers, snoopers, amateur arsonists. Prepare to be mildly appalled. I'm ready for that. And then I picked this one up after seeing Troy Towell unbox his copy. This is A Siege of Owls by Uchenna Awoke. And this sounds so good. It says, in a drought-stricken Igbo village, young Ekwe grows up haunted by owls, myths, and the boundaries of a world too small to contain his restless spirit. This is a story of two families, one lost, one gained, bound together by fate, resilience, and the dangerous hope that somewhere peace still exists. So yeah, I can't wait to start this one. And then the next question is, what's your most anticipated release for the second half of 2026? Later in September, Min-Jin Lee, who wrote Pachinko, has a new book called American Hagwon, and it sounds really interesting. It's all about the super competitive and controversial Hagwon educational system, which I'm totally unfamiliar with. And then the next question is, what's your biggest disappointment? One that I had high hopes for was An African in Greenland by Tete Kamasi. He sounds so interesting, and I admire the fact that he, made a childhood aspiration into reality. And I usually enjoy travel logs, but I think it was just the wrong time, and I was reading other books that I enjoyed a bit more. Next question is biggest surprise. So I have two for both ends of the spectrum here. So one big surprise was Rebecca by, this is perhaps Rebecca Du Maurier's most famous novel, and I tend to really enjoy her writing, and her style of pace, which is deliberately slow to start, and it builds as you gradually peel away superficialities and the characters' complicated interior world come to the surface. And I usually find her characters really intriguing, but yeah, for something that I've went into blind, like I know there's a lot of screen adaptations of this book, which I've never seen. But in the end, it just, I guess I was expecting a little bit more from it, and it just ended up being okay. I wasn't surprised by any of the events that take place in it, and it's definitely not my favorite Du Maurier novel. And then another one that surprised me was Lady Chatterley's Lover by D.H. Lawrence. I'm working my way through reading more banned books, and this one surprised me in that I went into it expecting it to be about one thing, but it turned out to be quite meaningful and still relevant, I felt, for our modern society, and particularly the double standards when it comes to female sexuality and the views on marriage and motherhood. And it contains a lot of it was still relevant in the themes that it addresses, such as social class and female desire and sexual fulfillment and love. I don't know, I was just surprised because it was written for the time that it was written in, and it's written by a man. So it is by no means perfect. I did have, there were a lot of things that I took that I didn't necessarily agree with. But yeah, with a classic, you're gonna run into a great deal of issues. But that's what so great about literature and art in general. It's a vehicle through which discussion can take place, and one hopes that society can learn and grow from such discussions. The next question is, who's a new favorite author? A debut author or new to you author, or an underrated author? A new to me author that I really enjoyed reading for the first time is Henry Van Dyke, who was an American author that I was completely unfamiliar with. I read Ladies of the Rachmaninoff Eyes, which is part of his series, and it's a classic from the 1950s. It's beautiful and a hilarious coming of age story about a young queer black man and his aunt who works for a wealthy Jewish woman who is grieving the recent suicide of her queer son, and I thought this was so excellent. It explores humanity through humor, and it's a shame that his work is out of print, so I'm hoping I can find a copy to the sequel of this book, which I believe is called Blood of Strawberries, because I really enjoyed his writing. And then the next question is newest fictional crush. I'm going to reword this as a fictional character you admire. There's so many. I feel like in every book I read, there's really wonderful, inspiring characters. But yeah, there was a middle grade I read called Insignificant Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus by Dusty Bowling. Her protagonist, Avon, I just loved her. I loved her spirit, and there, of course, is Mary Bennett and the supportive cast in that, such as Mrs. Hill and Mrs. Gardner, and the grandmother in On Earth Were Briefly Gorgeous, and and then the women in I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. Yeah, incredible. Oh my gosh. Especially the unnamed narrator. And then the next question is, who's your newest favorite character? That would be Alelia Walker. I'm reading her biography right now, Joy Goddess, by Alelia Bundles, who is her great-great-granddaughter. And I am learning so much about this incredible woman. It's just so one of a kind, and even her own mother's life, Madam C.J. Walker, is amazing in her own right as well. I really admire Alelia Walker's just vibrant spirit, generous, incredibly generous, and I see how Langston Hughes nicknamed her because it just, Joy Goddess, just when you find out just how integral in the lives of so many rising artists she was, who through her support were able to continue collaborating with one another, with people who they never would have been able to meet and socialize with if it weren't for these very supportive and safe places that she provided. Yeah, there's so much that we owe to this amazing woman. These incredible musicians and poets and writers just were able to create their art in what is perhaps America's greatest era of art, in my humble opinion. And then the next question is a book that made you cry. So that would be On Earth Were Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. This was my buddy read with Daniela at Uncommon Reader. Ocean Vuong's writing and his memorable characters just have an emotional effect on me. His work is relatable, and it makes me reflect on the people I love the most in my life and events and experiences I've had. And he ultimately reinvigorates my sense of hope, and which makes me emotional. And if you want to hear more about my thoughts on this, I do have a book review. And then a book that made you happy. Delightful book that made me happy is Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus. This was so hilarious and heartwarming, but at the same time has a lot of depth. It's about a 13-year-old girl named Avon who is born armless, and how she manages on her own and handles difficult transitions and prejudices, and just, yeah, ignorance, with humor and a really great attitude. And there's a bit of a family mystery too that I wasn't expecting, and I just love this. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading Dusty Bowling's sequel to this. And the next question is, what's your favorite book to movie adaptation you've seen so far this year? That would be The Other Bennett Sister. I binge watched this, you guys. Although it takes creative leeways from the novel, for one thing, it plays around and rearranges some sequence of events, and there was some dialogue that changed characters, but I still really really enjoyed this adaptation. I think the cast of characters and the acting was really great, and just the Lake District scenes were just so beautiful. That's definitely on my bucket list. And then, what's the most beautiful book you bought or received this year? I got some really beautiful books for my birthday, and first one is this Chiltern edition. It's just so beautiful with all the daisies. Another one is Jamaica Kincaid's Among Flowers, A Walk in the Himalaya. I think this is a Himalayan Edelweiss. I'm a sucker for florals. Cover art courtesy of Biodiversity Heritage Library. So it doesn't tell me who the painter of this illustration is. And then another one that's gorgeously illustrated is Around the World in 80 Birds, illustrated by Ryota Miyake. This whole series of books, like there's one on trees and plants, and each one is just absolutely gorgeous. It's just a really lovely series of, here's the Philippine eagle. Oh my gosh, just look how stunning that is. So anything with the natural world, yeah, I'm a sucker for. What books do you really need to read by the end of this year? Well, I don't have any deadlines or buddy reads planned as of yet. However, Roz and Katya just announced the group read-along book for Women in Translation Month, which is Magda Szabo's The Door. So I guess that counts for something I want to really need to read by the end of the year, but nothing really is set in stone. Before I get to my most favorite book so far this year, I just want to revisit and share my favorites for each month. So in January, my favorite was The Wolf and the Whale, and then in February it was James by Percival Everett. From March was On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. April, The Teacher of Nomadland, a World War II story by Daniel Nayari. And then in May I had two favorites, Blanche on the Lamb by Barbara Neely and The Sunflower Boys by Sam Walkman. We come to the best book I've read so far, and that's going to be Small Island by Andrea Levy. I really admire writers that explore our humanity through humor, and Levy does this so masterfully. The writing is excellent, and it's an account of four interconnected individuals right after World War II. One character, Gilbert, is a young, newly married Jamaican RAF pilot who's now residing in England, and he's been waiting to be reunited with his wife, Hortense, who is sailing from the Caribbean in hopes to start life anew together. And you see their struggles adjusting to culture shock and to life in England, where they're not welcome at all, despite their sacrifices and all that they have to offer. I just adored Levy's flawed characters and everything they stood for, and this book holds up a mirror to our society and to England's history. And yeah, I loved this book so much, and yeah, you should read it if you haven't. So those are my reading highlights from the year so far. I'd love to hear about some of your reading reflections and any thoughts that you might have on any of these books I mentioned. And yeah, if you have any suggestions for which Andrea Levy novel I should pick up next, please let me know. And thanks so much for listening. I'll see you next time. Take good care. Bye-bye.